#1 sports weekends. Fox Sports, only on 96.3 FM, 1370 AM.
This is WOCA, News Talk 1370. Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala!
All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Friday morning. Beautiful looking day. Hope you're doing well. Growing up on Long Island in the 1960s, I was a hippie wannabe. I wasn't old enough to actually do anything about it. I was 13 years old in '68, and of course 14 in '69. And the music was the music that you commonly associate with those years was a big part of my life. I just fell in love with that music, fell in love with what looked like a lifestyle that would be fun. I was way too young to go to Woodstock. Not really. I know some 14-year-olds probably went, but not me. I wasn't even allowed to go into the city. I did, but I wasn't allowed to. And I certainly wasn't going to go up to this place called Woodstock. And it wasn't even in Woodstock, but yeah, I know you know that. Margaret Grundstein, I don't know if she went to Woodstock or not, but she lived that hippie lifestyle. And it is fascinating to me because I never did it. It was like I wanted to do it. You know, I grew my hair long, which was kind of weird looking back at those photos now when I look at whoa, look at me.
Yeah.
Right? Did you ever want to be a hippie, Robin? I
did.
You did?
I did, yeah.
But you're in the same boat as me. We were just a hair too young to be doing that,
Yeah.
right? Just a hair.
Yeah, just a hair.
Margaret is a photographer, a psychotherapist. She dropped out of what she was doing. That was the cry of the day, right? I don't want to say
Yes.
the war cry, but it was something people were saying, drop out, right?
Yeah.
Go live in a cabin somewhere.
I know.
It sounded so
That
wonderful, didn't it?
It did. Nobody needed money or anything.
She's the owner and director of a preschool in Venice, by the way, Venice, California, which I'm very familiar with that area. And it would make sense that a former hippie would live in Venice to me. And anyway, her book is called Naked in the Woods, something else I've always wanted to be. My Unexpected Years in a Hippie Commune. It is her memoir. Margaret Grundstein. Good morning, Margaret.
Good morning.
Where are you right now?
I'm at my house in California, not too far from Venice.
Oh, okay. Where do you live in Santa Monica or?
Mar Vista.
Or Mar Vista,
It's close
okay.
to Santa Monica. It's all sort of kind of a small area there.
So where did you move there? Did you grow up there in that area?
No, I was a Motown girl. I grew up in Detroit, Midwest, went east to school, and then west to for adventure. But I've lived in Los Angeles for about 38 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I fell in love with L.A. too. And a lot of the friends who are in the same, probably would describe the 60s the same way I just did, moved to San Francisco. A lot of the guys I know.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
girls.
well,
Guys and girls.
Yeah, well, San Francisco was a beacon, and I think it was an urban spot, and it was also close to some beautiful countryside. Absolutely.
Yeah. It was interesting. So as I haven't read the whole book, just to be honest with you, but I mean, I will, first of all, because it's interesting to me. Second, I think the other reason it's interesting is because it could have been me. You lived what I wanted to live, I think. But was it different for a woman than for a guy? I mean, yeah, let's talk about that part first. What was it like for the guys out there to the girl? And were you all under the thumb of one leader, or could you each be your own independent person?
Well, let me give you just a little backstory on it. You know, I had come from an academic family. I was upwardly mobile. I had fought, my way to be on a successful path. I was in graduate school at Yale in urban planning, and it was the time of 68 to 70 student activism. The world was just turning upside down. And I got involved in that, and then the politics, the national politics, the local politics turned brutal. There were shootings, people were killed in Kent State, and the rhetoric became a little bit more, the confrontation would get us killed. What other ways could we change the world? And it became to change yourself inside. So I left with a bunch of friends, and I was married at the time to a very charismatic man who was very ideological and political. And so we were a bunch of, I wasn't an artist, but many of the people in the group were, and it happened serendipitously. It didn't happen, we are joining an existing commune. So there were 10, 20 of us, at most, And we all had egos that were too strong. None of us were going to follow one leader.
I like that. I like that. So it was what was it, 160 acres, I think I read?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started out, just landing in Eugene, not knowing what we were doing, rented a farm that was very easy for a year, and then one couple bought 160 acres with nothing on it. No plumbing, no electricity, certainly no phones, nothing. Sort of one ramshackle cabin for all of us.
And where was this?
It was on the coast of Oregon, the southern coast. It was in the mountains, just inland. And so when you ask about men and women, it was a time of great feminism when I was in the cities, but once we went to the country, it was man's country.
Oh, really?
And because to make dinner, you had to cut down a tree, essentially.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Since that those two people had money to actually buy the land for everybody else to live on, did you then all have to pool your own money into like a big bank, so to speak? So you'd have something?
Money is always a problem. It can be testy in a marriage. It's in any community, money is a difficulty. So we originally, my husband, when we lived on the farm, sort of started let's all put in our money. But again, nobody was quite going to do that. Except seemed to me my husband with our money without checking with me. When we got to the land, that became some of the problem. Was we innocently, and maybe other people were less innocent than me, thought that we could find ways of earning money and helping to pay the payments on the land, and we would own it. But the couple who bought it, it was hard-earned money, and she wanted it as an investment and didn't want to share it. And we came, so I think our end came to that. And at the time, I was very angry and frustrated because I had taken 5 years of my life, and I figured this was where I'd spend the rest of my life. But it wasn't. And in retrospect, I understand that money is a powerful influence. It's hard earned. We want to protect what we've got.
What were you doing to earn money?
Well, let me see. First, when we were there were leftover taxes and unemployment. Ultimately, and we lived on very little. We would scavenge. Here we are with fancy degrees, and we're behind grocery stores digging out from dumpsters.
Oh, no.
Gee.
Yeah. And you could live on, and also it was you could pick berries, and salmon were cheap, 25 cents a pound,
So you were 22 or so? How old were you?
I was about 27, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I ended up taking a job, trying to, I picked brush in the woods, which was a long, hard way to earn some money.
Did you sell it? You sold the brush?
Well, there was a shed that would buy the brush, the ferns and the Oregon grape, and they would sell it to nurseries and florists up and down the coast.
Oh, okay. So how did the outside community look at you guys? Were you looked upon differently than...
Yes.
Yeah?
I mean, there were two, we were up in the hills. We would come down, this ragtag group, and there was a local bar, and we'd go down maybe and play some of the guys would play some pool or something. And we were, I think, they saw us, I think, ultimately as benign, but they kind of saw us as, well, what's happening up there, all the drama, you know what I mean, all the sort of fantasies of this lascivious lifestyle that wasn't,
Right.
But people were kind once they knew us, except... once when I bought a pair of shoes at an Army-Navy store, a pair of boots, and they weren't good, they broke, and the guy just treated me like I was dirty. He said, "You dirty hippie, you wrecked him, you got him, you're out of here." And I was shocked, because I was used to being treated with more respect. So, and when I had a waitressing job, they put me in my big full head of hair way in the back at a fishing bar and restaurant, and I was kind of amusing. So there was kindness, but also a sense of difference.
Do you know what I was surprised in the book? Because I always thought that the hippie movement was vegetarians. I was surprised that you guys actually slaughtered the meat that you ate.
Yeah, people have preconceptions, and that's part of the reason I wanted to write the book. And vegetarianism was not that big at that time. I think all the food stuff is much, has taken off and become much more extreme. But the logic at the time was, if you grow it or kill it. If you're going to eat it, you better kill it. So you better kill that calf and you better kill that chicken. So we were meat eaters.
Did you have other people sort of like infiltrating into the commune, people that were like transients and stuff like that with no place to go, hoping they would get handouts from you guys?
You betcha. The ethic was your door is open, we are all equal. So we had old friends, but we had people that would just appear. And in one case, it was some gentleman, a young guy, who really had lost his mind. And there's a scene in the book where we've got this huge festive occasion, and we've made the soup out of all this fish we've gotten at the ocean, and he gets up, and it's on the table, and he just stomps through the soup. He just put his bare feet in the soup. On the other hand, there's another story of one couple. They hitchhiked to get to us, and they got picked up by some ex-convicts or something. And the people that drove them, the ex-convicts, were surprised we were so educated. We were surprised.
Oh, that's funny.
Couldn't fool you guys.
That's funny stuff. Margaret, we need to take a little break because it's the capitalist thing to do, to sell advertising.
We got it. I got it.
Margaret Grundstein is on the phone, and she's a photographer, a psychotherapist. She's written this book. If you've ever wondered about that whole commune hippie thing and wanted to kind of see it from the inside, that's what this book does. It's called Naked in the Woods, My Unexpected Years in a Hippie Commune. It's her memoir, and we'll be right back with Margaret Grundstein after this break.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Today, sunshine mixing with some clouds and turning breezy this afternoon with a shower or thunderstorm in spots. Our high 84 to 89. Tonight, partly cloudy, a shower or thunderstorm around, low 66 to 73. Clouds and sunshine tomorrow with a shower or thunderstorm, high 85 to 89. Sunday, sunshine mixing with some clouds with a shower or thunderstorm in spots, high 85 to 91. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Steve Travis.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy, never being in the mood. And when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then I found the doctors at New Male Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. New Male treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. New Male will help you.
Call New Male Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
One of the most common questions those nearing retirement are asking: will I outlive my money? Retirement questions like these and many more will be answered every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement with hosts Francois and Julian Cozenet. Francois and Julian will help you put your retirement puzzle together. Catch Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement Saturdays at 9 a.m. on Ocala's News Talk, The Source 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
Stay informed on everything going on in the villages with the Village Spectator newspaper. The Village Spectator is exclusively devoted to the villages with news, commentary, and more. And yes, they have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask is that you tell them where you heard about them. Call Tom's Picks at 804-1223 and pick up your copy of the Village Spectator today.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
Right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock, Margaret Grundstein is on the phone. Her book is called Naked in the Woods, My Unexpected Years in a Hippie Commune. It is her memoir. And she's also, in addition to being an author, she's a photographer and a psychotherapist and the owner and director of a preschool in Venice, California. Do you know something, Margaret, I've often thought about this, is that the Beatles, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Melanie, many more musicians from that era all looked like they were living that hippie lifestyle, but none of them were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, and I think they fed into it. I mean, I think a lot of us bought that. How did that? How long were you doing that? What, like 5 years?
Yeah, from beginning to end, from graduating from graduate school and then leaving and heading west to, going back and trying to re-enter society and crawling my way back into the middle class. Beginning to end, about 5 years.
So but I'm hoping there's a positive thing to this. How did that change Let me not say change, but how did it affect the way that you view life today? I mean, you look at this one piece of your information says a lot to me. You are the owner and director of a preschool. That sounds to me like you've still got, because there's a part of this whole hippie thing that maybe some of it was a bad choice, but there's another part of it that really says, gosh, I'm doing this because I really love the earth. I really love my fellow mankind. And that seems to still resonate with people who've gone through this like you have.
That, your questions are really phenomenally good and to the point. That, whether something worked or not ultimately or lasted forever is kind of beyond the point. That I think I felt very much like I was a part. I wrote the book because I didn't want it to be I didn't want hippies to be seen as just two-dimensional. There was a true, from the heart, desire to be part of something larger than myself, to also have a great meaning in life, to be part of a strong community, to work together, and to live in a world, the world, and be surrounded by the beauty of it. And that comes way before me and will exist today and will come way past me. And sometimes we hit on that for moments and sometimes we don't. And yes, my preschool is a continuation of that. That's what I've come to learn. It's a small school. It's a very sweet community, and I really like the community around it. And it's a place where, in a preschool, you use the word friendly. How are we friendly with each other? How do we treat each other nicely? How do we see each other in all our various differences and grow to our fullest potential? And so I feel like I'm carrying out many of the things that were dear to my heart, but not dropping out, but by participating in. But they were both valuable experiences to me, and both had great integrity for me.
Did you have children born while you were in the commune?
No, I ended up a single woman in the woods in the middle of all this, which was a little shocking to me because I didn't have the tools or the literal tools or but I have 2 daughters that are grown. I had them afterwards and 2 grandchildren now.
Oh, okay.
So how could
but the women who had children, it was hard for them at that time.
So how could a pretty naked lady in the woods not get pregnant? How is that?
She had scruples.
How is that possible?
Well,
you're young, you're beautiful, you're naked, and you're not getting pregnant. That's almost impossible.
Yeah.
The cover of your book, you're holding an axe and a camera. If I were there, I would say, don't do the 2 things together. It seems like the camera would be ruined somehow.
How did you deal with illnesses?
Well, luckily we were young and we didn't get sick, but we did have one woman who was pregnant, and at that time home births and midwives were very rare, and she did a home birth and got an infection, which my husband led the charge in terms of trying to take care of it ourselves, and we were lucky. We were very lucky that she recovered. But by and large, we were young and we were healthy.
Did you stay in touch with the world news? I know you listened to the radio, but did you listen to news or just like...
We had no radio. For the about 2.5, 3 years that we were on the land, 160 acres, no radio.
Oh, well, you had no radio.
Actually, I did. I had a battery-powered radio that I would sometimes listen to at night in my little cabin that I had built alone.
I thought I read that there was a radio in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. But we didn't have one in the cabin, the main cabin, but I had a little one myself, yes. So there were connections with the outside world, and we would go down to the library or read a paper somewhere, but it wasn't like the daily contact we have now, and there was no internet, so we weren't part of that.
Was anybody there avoiding the draft?
Everybody, a couple of the guys had served and been in the Navy Air Force, actually.
Oh,
one
wow.
guy, and landing on those, and a couple of the guys had been in Vietnam, and one guy had to go in for the draft, but luckily, by the skin of his teeth, he was, he had a 4F for a reason. But most of there was nobody. We had no draft dodgers per se.
You seem to be very handy. I mean, the photographs in your book are really phenomenal, but your cabins seem like the Hilton compared to the other cabins. Yours is very impressive.
Well, it was the most I loved that tar paper shack. Let me tell you, it was one of the best homes I ever had. I still love it. And it looks bigger in the photograph. You get the best view of it. And I certainly was helped. I couldn't have done it all myself. There were a lot of architects, and they would tell me what to do, or they would do some of the heavy cutting, and they would help me do the lifting. But I had to be the force, and I had to be there hand sawing those boards on my, I had to learn. I didn't know how to, fix an engine on a truck. I didn't know how to build a house, and I certainly had a lot of help, but I had to learn those skills.
So what was your parents like? How did they react to this? I'm assuming they were back in Detroit?
Well, they had moved to Cleveland by this time, and they, in retrospect, at the time they didn't seem that, they seemed relatively irrelevant to me. In retrospect, they were certainly gracious, and I would have broken my heart if my, daughters did the same thing, because I could go for a year or 6 months and be out of contact. They couldn't call us. There was no phone. There was a face-off with my husband and my parents in Cleveland as we were heading west, where he and my dad, as the two generations sort of stood up and faced each other across the table.
Oh, wow. So he was trying to stop him from taking you?
Well, I mostly it was I think my husband was willing to challenge anything and anything that moved, and certainly my father. And their politics were very different. And I remember my husband slamming his fist down on the table and, stalking off, and me left with my parents at the table with the dregs of dinner there thinking, what am I going to do here?
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, wow. How uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look back sometimes at the thoughts I had back then. Now, I didn't do the lifestyle change like you did, but the thoughts were kind of there. And I look back on some of them now and I say, gosh, that was kind of a weird way to think. That was kind of an unrealistic way to think or something. And I think certainly our politics probably changes for all of us, but some things still remain the same. And I think it comes from that a lot in a great way. Mm-hmm. I don't know where it comes from, but I think there's a part of all of us that wants, I don't know, something rustic. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love cities. I went into city planning because I love them, and I've lived in big cities. But I'm sitting here looking out a backyard with, hummingbirds and flowers and trees and all sorts of greenery. At my preschool, we have our garden. I think learning about the natural world. And like I said, I think, most images of utopia don't take, dystopia takes place in destroyed cities. Utopia usually has some natural world in it, and it's a universal dream somehow, and there's birds and flowers and greenery. Yes, I think that
I don't know if we know this answer. Was this uniquely American, or were the kids in Europe doing the same thing at that time, or Asia, or anywhere else?
Well, I know in Europe there were students were, rioting but I don't know if they're back to the land. I don't know about communes. And certainly, as you say, everybody didn't do it. A lot of people kept their jobs but would do stuff on the weekend. I think what made us distinctive is that we truly did walk away. As a matter of fact, we walked away so far and for so long, we were irrelevant. Talk about a protest. No one even notices you're there after a while because you've dropped so far out. But so we did sacrifice or put something on the line.
But living that way, though, you did have to realize that there had to be a balance. You just couldn't have utopia without having the amount of strife and troubles that you had, both personally and as a group.
Well, we were young, and I will say that experience taught us. And it's a little like going into a marriage. You think, this person's so perfect, and they think you're perfect, sort of. And as you live together, you say, well, he does that, or, well, that's or how are we going to work out the money? So but it's more like a group marriage without all the group sex, So, and we're human. We bring who we are and our fallibilities with us. And if, but I felt like at least we were trying for the side of goodness. The world fights between goodness and evil, and I feel like at least we put our shoulders to some dream that felt like it was an inclusive, positive dream, not a destructive dream.
The book is called Naked in the Woods. It's written by our guest, Margaret Grundstein, and it is subtitled My Unexpected Years in a Hippie Commune. Mm-hmm. I have a copy of the book. Call me if you want the book. I will leave it for you. And the only naked picture, by the way, it looks like you're all running I don't.
Yeah, there was a picture, I think, from a steam bath when we lived on the farm, and everybody running, a bunch of people, obviously not me because I have the camera, running out of the steam hut into the creek to cool off.
Oh, that's why you're running. Okay. Yeah, call me if you want the copy that was sent to us. The rest of us have to go buy it. Are you? Can you give us a website to go to?
My name, Margaret Grundstein, Margaret, Grundstein.com.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for being on the air with us. That was a fun interview for me, and I can live vicariously through your book. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you so much. It was great fun for me, too. Thanks for the opportunity.
We'll be right back.
The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Our economy taking a beating in the first quarter from the weather and a strong dollar.
The Commerce Department reports the economy actually shrank 0.7